The missile is already in the air before anyone on the Iranian coastline knows the strike has begun. At 0349 local time, in a corridor of black water 240 miles southeast of Bandar Abbas, the USS Bunker Hill rotates its forward Mk-41 vertical launch cells through a firing sequence that takes 11 seconds per salvo. There is no warning shot, there is no final diplomatic signal. There is only the ignition bloom, the booster separation, and then the low-altitude cruise of a BGM-109 Tomahawk moving at 550 miles per hour toward a target that was assigned to it 72 hours ago by a targeting cell in Bahrain that had been building this package for 14 months. 6 other warships are doing the same thing across a battle space that stretches 300 miles in every direction. 218 missiles in total, 61 aim points, 19 minutes from first launch to last impact, and the USS Abraham Lincoln, the most powerful warship ever constructed, is sitting dark and silent at the center of it all. Engines idling, flight deck cold, not a single aircraft in the air. That last detail is the one that matters. Remember it. What the world will see in the hours after this strike is the damage assessment footage. Radar towers collapsed into rubble, anti-ship missile batteries reduced to scattered metal across scorched ground, command bunkers with their roofs blown inward. The narrative will center on firepower. 218 Tomahawks, 61 targets, 19 minutes. The numbers are designed to land with weight, and they do. But the firepower is not the story. The firepower is the surface. Underneath it, something more precise and more consequential was executed in that darkness over the Arabian Sea, and understanding what it actually was requires going back 14 months to a construction project that the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps Navy believed was invisible. They called it, internally, the Integrated Coastal Resistance Architecture. Western analysts assigned it a different name. The important thing is what it was, not a weapons system but a kill chain. Starting from the Strait of Hormuz and running north and west along the Iranian coastline, the IRGCN had spent 3 years building a layered, networked, mutually reinforcing maritime denial structure. Radar farms feeding continuous targeting data to truck-mounted anti-ship missile batteries. Those batteries hardwired through buried fiber optic lines to dispersed command nodes positioned away from the coast where they were harder to locate and harder to strike. Those nodes synchronized with fast attack craft squadrons operating from shallow water sanctuaries in the Gulf's northern reaches. Water too shallow for American submarine operations, terrain too confined for carrier aircraft to safely prosecute without accepting significant attrition risk. Individually, none of these components was revolutionary. Iranian Noor and College Far's missiles are well understood systems. The fast attack craft doctrine was studied thoroughly after the tanker war era. The radar network drew on Chinese and Russian technical assistance, but wasn't architecturally novel. What was new, what represented a genuine doctrinal evolution in Iranian maritime strategy, was the integration. The fiber optic backbone that connected the radar picture to the targeting computers to the launch unit meant that an Iranian coastal battery commander didn't need to independently acquire his target. The network did it for him. He received a targeting solution, a fire authorization, and a launch window, and his only job was to execute. Response time from threat detection to missile away had dropped from minutes to seconds. For a carrier strike group operating within 600 kilometers of the Iranian coast, this architecture created a problem that hadn't existed before in this theater. It wasn't that any single element could defeat American defenses. It was that the network's speed, redundancy, and geographic depth meant that suppressing it required either accepting the engagement risk of operating inside it, which meant accepting potential missile hits on high-value surface combatants, or standing off at a distance that degraded the effectiveness of American power projection against Iranian territory. The IRGCN had built in effect a strategic tax on American naval operations in the Gulf. A friction machine, American planners had been mapping it for 18 months, every radar node, every battery position, every known command facility. The target packages being refined in Bahrain were meticulous, sequenced for time-on-target precision, deconflicted for second and third order effects, layered with redundancy so that if a single Tomahawk missed its window, a backup was already programmed behind it. The strike, as it existed in the planning files in early autumn, was designed to destroy the visible network. Thoroughly, precisely, and permanently, then, 72 hours before the Lincoln's battle group moved to its launch position, something changed. A human source inside the IRGCN Logistics Command an asset that had been producing low-level administrative intelligence for 3 years, the kind of material that fills databases and rarely drives operational decisions, produced a single document, a movement schedule, 14 mobile launcher positions, rotation timings across a secondary road network that ran parallel to the coast but 20 kilometers inland, beyond the terrain features that American reconnaissance satellites used as bounding geometry for their collection passes. Forward fuel depot coordinates, reload site locations, the schedule of the radio operator, who managed voice communications for the entire dispersed network using one-time pad cipher books rather than digital systems. This was the Ghost Ark, a second layer, running in deliberate parallel to the visible integrated network, built on the assumption that the Americans would find the fiber optic system and target it. The Ghost Ark was the answer to that targeting. Older missiles, non-networked launchers, no digital emission signature for SIGINT platforms to geolocate, small teams, 4 operators per launcher, receiving targeting data through encrypted voice transmissions that left no network traffic pattern to analyze. Primitive by design, invisible by design, capable, in the aftermath of an American strike on the visible network, of re-establishing a degraded but functional coastal denial capability within hours of the first impact. At the exact moment when American planners would believe the threat had been neutralized and begin transitioning to follow-on operations. The Ghost Ark was not a backup, it was a trap. The Tomahawk package was revised in 48 hours. 61 aim points became 61 plus 14. The sequencing was rebuilt to ensure that Ghost Ark positions were struck within the same 19-minute window as the visible network. Not after, not as a second wave, but simultaneously, before any IRGCN commander could observe the strike developing and order the Ghost Ark teams into a dispersal pattern that would take them off their known positions. The intelligence window was measured in hours. The Ghost Ark teams rotated positions on a 72-hour cycle. The next rotation was scheduled for 600 local time, 2 hours and 11 minutes after the first Tomahawk would impact. This is why the strike happened on this night and not 6 months ago, not 3 months ago, not on any of the earlier windows when the visible network alone could have been destroyed. The planners were waiting for the Ghost Ark. They needed the human intelligence product that would tell them where it was, and they needed to hit it before the next rotation erased the positional data. The timing wasn't chosen for political symbolism or diplomatic signaling or operational convenience. It was chosen because the intelligence window that made a complete strike possible, one that removed both layers simultaneously, was open for approximately 50 hours, and it was closing. 218 missiles hitting 81 aim points in 19 minutes is not a demonstration of brute force. It is a demonstration of intelligence to fires integration at a speed and precision that no other military on Earth can currently replicate. Every missile in that salvo was answering not a tactical question but a doctrinal one. The question Iran's coastal defense architecture had posed to American naval planners for 3 years was simple. Can you operate freely in this theater? Or does the threat we've built impose a cost you're unwilling to pay? 218 Tomahawks, revised in 48 hours on the basis of a single human intelligence report, launched simultaneously against both the visible and hidden layers of a system the Iranians believed was partially concealed. That is the answer. Not to the tactical question. To the doctrinal one. Now return to the Lincoln, sitting dark, flight deck cold, air wing armed and fueled and waiting but silent, 90 aircraft. FCA-18 Super Hornets configured for deep strike and suppression of enemy air defenses. EA-18G Growlers loaded for electronic warfare. E-2D Hawkeyes already airborne and painting the entire Gulf surface picture in real time, feeding the carrier's Combat Direction Center a continuous radar mosaic of every Iranian surface vessel within 400 miles. The E-2D feed was showing something during those 19 minutes. IRGCN fast attack craft in the Bandar Abbas anchorage area began reacting at minute 4 of the strike, accelerations, formation breaks, the surface radar signatures of units receiving emergency orders, and beginning to sort themselves into an operational posture. For 9 minutes, the pattern was consistent with a force preparing to respond. Then at minute 13 it changed. The fast attack craft began returning to port, not dispersing into the shallow water sanctuaries where they were most effective, returning. Standing down. Whoever commanded Iranian naval forces in that moment had looked at the incoming battle damage reports from the coastal network, the radar nodes going dark one by one, the command facility at Bandar-e-Jask producing no response to communication attempts, the Ghost Ark radio operator frequency going silent, and made a rational military calculation. engaging the Lincoln's battle group, with the coastal defense architecture being dismantled in real time, without the targeting network that gave the fast attack doctrine its effectiveness, was not a viable option. It was a one-way trip for every crew that left port. The Air Wing launch order was never issued. Rear Admiral commanding Carrier Strike Group 9 sat in the MAT Direction Center and watched the IRGCN stand down in real time, and the most powerful air wing in the American naval inventory remained on deck, unused. That is the precise signal the Lincoln's positioning was designed to send, not the missiles. The missiles were the action. The carrier was the statement: this was not our full capability. This was not even close to our full capability. What you saw tonight was the opening that we chose to open. There are doors behind this one. In deterrence theory, the term for this is escalation dominance. It means that at every rung of the conflict ladder, limited strike, sustained air campaign, full theater war, one side possesses a decisive capability advantage and retains the ability to climb to the next rung at a time and by means of its own choosing. What the Lincoln's silent flight deck communicated to Iranian command authority during those 19 minutes was that the strike they had just absorbed was not the ceiling, it was a choice. The ceiling had not been shown. The Shahed coastal arc is debris and dead circuits. The Ghost Arc is scattered metal along 14 secondary road positions that its operators never had time to vacate. The integrated kill chain that the IRGCN spent 3 years building and believed was partially hidden is gone. Both layers, simultaneously in under 20 minutes. The deterrence architecture that Iran spent the better part of a decade constructing, the one that was supposed to impose unacceptable risk on American carrier operations in the Gulf and create a strategic buffer around the Iranian mainland, was removed on a single night by a targeting process that found the hidden layer through a human source, revised a complex multi-ship strike package in 48 hours, and executed it with a precision that left no functional node intact. Iran will rebuild. That is the certainty that sits beneath every other calculation in the aftermath of this strike. The IRGCN will study the wreckage, analyze the sequencing logic of the impacts, identify what the targeting package revealed about American intelligence methods, and build the next version with countermeasures for every vulnerability this strike exposed. They will disperse more aggressively. They will use more primitive communication systems. They will change rotation cycles more frequently. The next coastal defense network will be harder to map, harder to source, and harder to synchronize into a single strike window. But there is a period now, its length uncertain, its edges defined by Iranian reconstruction capacity and procurement timelines, and the speed at which lessons are institutionalized, during which the Northern Arabian Sea and the Persian Gulf belong to American carrier aviation in a way they have not for several years. That window is not a victory condition. It is an opportunity space, and what is done with it, diplomatically, strategically, through the architecture of regional security arrangements, and the communication of red lines to other actors, watching this strike very carefully from capitals that are not Tehran, will determine whether what happened at 0349 on that dark morning becomes a turning point or simply a reset before the next cycle begins. The Lincoln is already repositioning. New coordinates, new watch rotation. The strike warfare coordinators who ran the Tomahawk sequence are writing their after-action reports. The human intelligence source whose document revised the entire strike package is somewhere that will never appear in any public account of this operation. The 61 primary targets and 14 Ghost Arc positions are being reviewed in post-strike imagery analysis, and the assessment of destruction percentages will either confirm the package or flag the nodes that need follow-on attention. And in the headquarters of Iranian Naval Command, someone is sitting with a map of a coastline that does not have the defenses it had yesterday, running a calculation about what the next move looks like, knowing that the calculation has to account for a fact that cannot be argued away. The Americans found the Ghost Arc, not through satellites, not through signals intelligence, not through any of the technical collection methods that the Ghost Arc was specifically designed to defeat. They found it through a person, someone in the IRGCN logistics chain who knew the movement schedule and decided, for reasons that will be debated and investigated and never fully resolved, to give it to the other side. That is the vulnerability that no coastal defense architecture, no matter how layered or dispersed or technically sophisticated, can fully solve. The human factor, the source inside the machine. The document that travels from a logistics office in one direction and arrives in a targeting cell in another. Iran can rebuild every radar tower and restock every missile battery and redesign every command node. What it cannot do is guarantee, with certainty, that the next network it builds will remain unknown to the people it is built to stop. The Lincoln is moving through dark water. The flight deck crews are standing down. Somewhere along the Iranian coastline, the fires from the last impacts are still burning. And the next network is already being planned in an office that believes, this time it has finally found the design that cannot be found.